Yo, quick spur of the moment video. I just wrapped up the boat sides and everyone's been heckling me about getting this LS running. And at the very end of the last video, I mentioned that one of the next videos coming up could be me firing this Jeep up. So I decided not to do a full install video on the Holley Terminator. There's plenty of those videos out there on YouTube. So went ahead and got that thrown on the Jeep. We got trans fluid in it. We had the fuel pump all wired up, and it's time to fire the Jeep up. Now, before I start it, I want to go ahead and put a manual or an electronic oil pressure sensor on the Jeep, just so in case the Terminator isn't reading it right, I know there's oil pressure inside the engine. That's about it. So we're gonna go ahead, get that threaded in, get it wired up, and then it's time to fire the Jeep up. So hang out, watch, enjoy. All right, so the mock-up oil pressure gauge is set up on the engine. So now I'm going to throw you guys on the tripod. We are going to crank and check for oil pressure. If we get it, then we're gonna fire it. Cody and Alex both are here for the big moment. Let's hear this thing roar. Roar. Is it registering?
It reads up to like 25, but I don't think that's accurate oil pressure. I think that's air moving through it.
All right, well, it's been a couple days, but we're back out here in the garage and the Jeep frickin' runs. Now, huge sigh of relief knowing that it runs, considering I built this engine like 2 years ago, but it's finally in the Jeep, it's finally running. We're not gonna be on the trail tomorrow, but hopefully here in the next couple months, we'll have this thing wrapped up and start making some off-road content, which means potentially new builds happening in the garage. But we're not talking about that. What we're going to be talking about the remainder of this video is my cheat sheet. I figured with a bunch of new subscribers and viewers of the channel, there's a lot of unanswered questions. I figured if I took this little bit of time to run down the build list or the parts list for my LS swap, that it would be a wise decision and something you guys may find helpful. Whoa, pump the brakes. I almost forgot. Now, the most important part of your LS swap or any engine swap is going to be your engine management. So I need to take this time to thank my buddy Steve over at sneevysoffroad.com for sourcing me my Holley Terminator during COVID. Now, if you guys remember, during COVID, there was an electronic chip shortage. Everything was hard to get. I went ahead and still pulled the trigger on it through him. The nice thing was, it did still take a little bit to get, but I wasn't calling Holley every week to figure out where my stuff was. He took care of it. So that little bit of customer support from him made the whole experience worth it. So if you guys need any parts, make sure to hit up Steve first, link in the description, see if he can source them for you, see if he can save you money, and support the people who support you. Know what I mean? All right, so let's dive into the actual build list now. All right, let's talk about my swap. So this is a Gen 3 4.8 liter Vortec out of a 2005 GMC Silverado. The bottom end of this motor has 275,000 miles on it. Initially, when I put it in the Jeep, I knew it was high miles, so I decided that the whole concept behind this was if it pops, it pops. But I decided to go ahead and start doing preventative maintenance on this motor as well. It ran good, so I kind of justified it. Plus, I hate oil leaks. So the motor itself went ahead and got completely resealed. We did a brand new oil pump, timing chain, timing gears, pulled the heads off, sent those out to get decked. They checked over the heads, everything was good. Had brand new valve seals put in them. Slapped it all back together with the used head bolts. So yeah, it's just thrown back together, but like I said, the whole concept was if it pops, it pops. As far as performance goes with the motor, we didn't do too much for that reason. So I went ahead and put a Summit Truck Stage 1 camshaft in it with a set of matching Corvette valve springs. I went ahead and also did the Smith Brothers trunnion bearing upgrade. I figured if this thing's gonna see rev limiter, that was a safe bet to install. And lastly, I did a Vortec 92 millimeter throttle body. The reason I did that, I hated the way the factory one looked. This motor was drive-by-wire and I wanted to switch to cable, so killed a couple birds with a couple stones. Another thing I went ahead and did was a set of Speed Engineering headers on the Jeep. Those work really good with the Dave's mounts for the LS swap in the TJ. A lot of people use the truck or the Camaro manifolds. I know they definitely work good on a YJ, but with my 3-link setup on the passenger side, it was way too tight. So spent the money, got the Speed Engineering headers, like the way they look, and hopefully with the full exhaust on this thing, it should sound good. Now, the last part of the engine is going to be the random ICT goodies. I have a full front drive from ICT. It uses a Camaro alternator on the passenger side, and the power steering pump is stock location, but it's raised a little bit to help fit with the frame rail. This is a stock GM pump that's been modified to work with a full hydro setup. I'm not doing the PSC pump. I wanted to try this one out first. My buddy Brad, Pork Chop XJ, he uses it, and he's had decent luck with it, so I figured for the money and the quality concerns of the PSC pump, this was money well spent. The last little bit of ICT goodies is going to be a valley cover. You can't really see under there. A coolant crossover tube, which I'm going to actually be swapping that back to the factory one, and my homemade intake, which utilizes a K&N air filter. So that covers the engine. Obviously, it is all ran through a Holley Terminator, which I have mounted inside my glove box. And the display for now is up on the dash. Fuel system, super simple. We are running a Motobilt 19-gallon TJ swap tank. It utilizes the TJ stock sending unit, but what I did was I went ahead and popped the factory pump out of it, swapped in a Walbro 255, used Novax fuel pressure delete plug, and plumbed everything with Fragola 6AN lines down to a Corvette style regulator, which plumbs the whole way up to the engine. Lastly, the two tidbits of my swap are going to be the transmission is a Turbo 400 and the transfer case is going to be that Rubicon 4-to-1. Now, the downside, we fired this thing up, made sure everything was good, and we were checking vitals, looking for leaks, and unfortunately, the Turbo 400 oil pump right behind the converter is leaking. So, as you can see, we have a couple of drips on the ground. That means the trans has to come back out, and we got to put some silicone on those bolts. Not the end of the world. Truthfully, I have to drop the trans again anyway, because there's a little bit of finish work left to do. So, that is about it for my swap. Everything turned out great. I'm excited to use all of the LS power. I'm sure this thing is only going to make about 200 horsepower to the wheels, but it's about 199 more horsepower than the 4-cylinder had initially. So to finish up this video, we're going to fire it up one last time, listen to this thing sing, and that'll be it. Obviously, the Jeep still needs a tune, and it kind of sounds like crap being that it's only open header, but we will get an exhaust on it once we get drive shafts in it. So this video is effectively over. The whole point of this was to just get the motor fired and running inside the Jeep. Hope you guys enjoyed this upload. We'll see you guys on the next upload. Later.